The once bustling Boeing plant in Everett, Washington, now sits eerily silent. Where thousands of workers once moved with purpose, the vast assembly lines are now still, echoing with the absence of activity. Boeing has halted production of its 737 MAX and 787 Dreamliner lines, a drastic move not seen since the pandemic's darkest days. The sight of unfinished aircraft gathering dust is a stark reminder of the company's current crisis. The catalyst, Beijing's announcement of a sweeping 25% tariff on all US-made aircraft and aerospace components, has effectively locked Boeing out of its most vital overseas market, dealing a devastating blow to its international ambitions. This is the culmination of months of escalating US-China trade tensions, with each side ratcheting up tariffs and restrictions in a high-stakes economic chess match that has left global industries on edge. Boeing, America's largest exporter and a symbol of US industrial might, is now at the epicenter of a geopolitical standoff that threatens its future. The company's stock plunged 15% in just a few hours, erasing billions in value and sending shockwaves through the financial markets. Investors are left reeling, uncertain about what comes next. Airlines are scrambling for alternatives, with European rival Airbus poised to benefit from Boeing's misfortune. The balance of power in global aviation is shifting rapidly. The halt disrupts a vast supply chain, threatening thousands of jobs and small businesses nationwide. From parts suppliers to logistics firms, the ripple effects are being felt far beyond Boeing's walls. For Boeing's workforce, the future is uncertain. Furloughs and layoffs loom, and families across the region brace for tough times ahead. The symbolism is stark, a flagship of American innovation brought to a standstill by global politics. The world is watching as an industry giant falters. The US strategy underestimated China's willingness to retaliate, and now the costs are clear. Policymakers are scrambling to respond, but the damage may already be done. Beijing has shown it will use its economic leverage, even at a price, signaling a new era of assertiveness in global trade. The quiet in Everett is a sobering preview of the new era of economic conflict, one where the fallout is measured not just in dollars, but in livelihoods and lost opportunities. China's 25% tariff on American aircraft was a calculated strike, not a random act. This move was carefully timed and targeted, designed to send a clear message to Washington and the world about Beijing's willingness to defend its interests. It came just after new US restrictions on Chinese tech and electric vehicles, signaling a tit-for-tat escalation in the ongoing trade war. Each side is now responding directly to the other's actions, raising the stakes with every new measure. By targeting Boeing, China hit a sector vital to the US economy and politically sensitive for the White House. Boeing is not just a company, it's a symbol of American industrial strength and innovation, making it a high-profile target. The aerospace industry supports high-paying jobs in key states, turning trade friction into a domestic political crisis. Thousands of workers and entire communities depend on Boeing's success, amplifying the pressure on US leaders. This is economic statecraft at its sharpest. Beijing is using trade as a tool to achieve broader strategic goals, not just economic ones. The move marks a shift from earlier, more measured Chinese responses. Now Beijing is willing to disrupt critical industries. The strategy is twofold: to demonstrate resolve and to force the US to reconsider its own aggressive policies. The first aim is to inflict pain on a major US exporter, threatening billions in sales and thousands of American jobs. The second is to pressure lawmakers in Boeing-dependent states where political support can make or break national policy decisions. Meanwhile, Airbus stands to gain, as Chinese airlines redirect orders, deepening China-EU ties and shifting the balance in the global aviation market. Beijing's message is clear: China is indispensable to the global economy and won't be dictated to by foreign powers. The world's supply chains and markets are deeply intertwined with China's growth. The risk is real. China's own aviation sector relies on Boeing. But Beijing is betting the US will blink first, calculating that American political and economic pain will outweigh its own. The world is watching to see who yields in this high-stakes standoff, as the outcome could set a precedent for future global trade disputes. The tariff is more than economic retaliation. It's a direct challenge to America's global leadership and its ability to shape international trade rules. The gamble could reshape the balance of power in aviation, with long-term consequences for both industry giants and the countries that back them. The outcome will set the tone for future US-China relations, influencing not just trade, but the broader geopolitical landscape for years to come. The tariffs triggered a financial shock for Boeing. Chinese airlines began canceling $40 billion in orders. Boeing's production ramp-up has left it with surplus parts, idle workers, and a paralyzed supply chain. Shutting down and restarting assembly lines is costly and complex, compounding the crisis. Suppliers, many small businesses face stop-work orders and existential threats. Investor confidence is shaken, airlines worldwide are reconsidering Boeing orders. Boeing's credit rating is under review, and the company faces mounting daily costs. 30,000 workers face furloughs, with total job losses potentially exceeding 100,000 if the halt drags on. The silence in Everett foreshadows a much wider economic storm. The Boeing crisis is rippling far beyond aerospace, hitting industries across all 50 states. States like Kansas and Ohio, home to key suppliers, are feeling the pain alongside Washington and South Carolina. The loss of high-wage manufacturing jobs in battleground states turns economic pain into political pressure. For every Boeing job, 3 to 4 more are supported in the wider economy. Aerospace was America's top export. Now, U.S. aircraft are non-competitive in China. Export volumes are set to plunge, and the gap won't be easily filled. The crisis exposes the fragility of global supply chains built for efficiency, not resilience. Companies are scrambling to find new suppliers or consider reshoring, driving up costs. The Boeing shock is forcing a fundamental rethink of American industrial strategy. Geopolitical risk is now a central concern for U.S. manufacturers. The Boeing halt is hitting the heartland. Agriculture braces for renewed Chinese tariffs on soybeans, corn, and pork. Farmers in Iowa, Illinois, and Nebraska face losing their biggest market again, threatening livelihoods and depressing prices. The tech sector is also caught in the crossfire, with U.S. firms facing canceled contracts and a push in China to replace American technology. Small and medium manufacturers, the backbone of aerospace supply chains, are facing catastrophic drops in orders. Many lack the reserves to survive a prolonged shutdown, risking a wave of bankruptcies. Up to 500,000 American jobs could be at risk, concentrated in high-wage manufacturing. The service economy, from trucking to retail, will feel the downstream effects. The trade war is no longer abstract, it's real economic pain for communities nationwide. The stakes for a resolution have never been higher. The Boeing crisis exposes the vulnerability of globalized manufacturing. Decades of offshoring and complex supply chains delivered efficiency, but now leave U.S. industry exposed to geopolitical shocks. Reshoring is politically popular but practically daunting. Rebuilding supply chains would take years and massive investment. Full retreat from globalization is unlikely. Higher costs and less competitiveness would follow. The crisis is accelerating automation, as companies seek resilience through robotics and AI. New jobs will require different skills, creating a gap for displaced workers. Manufacturers are weighing friendshoring, automation, and diversification. The era of efficiency at all costs is over. Resilience is now the priority. The Boeing crisis is a catalyst for rethinking how and where America makes things. The future will demand a hybrid approach to global production. The trade war is fracturing the global tech landscape and threatening U.S. innovation. China is accelerating efforts to replace American tech, closing off a massive market for U.S. firms. Competing tech ecosystems are emerging, shrinking the global market for American products. Reduced revenue for R&D could slow U.S. innovation, while China races ahead in AI and quantum computing. High-skilled jobs in aerospace and tech are at risk. Boeing's furloughs are just the start. Tech companies reliant on China are freezing hiring and starting layoffs. The skills gap is widening, as new jobs require different training than those being lost. Without a national strategy for retraining, displaced workers could face long-term unemployment. Economic inequality and unrest may grow if the transition isn't managed. The trade war's consequences are hitting American workers hardest. Experts are sharply divided on what comes next, with opinions ranging from cautious optimism to deep concern about the future of global trade. Dr. Eleanor Vance of the Peterson Institute predicts that back-channel talks are already underway, and she sees a possible de-escalation on the horizon. She points to the deep mutual dependence between the U.S. and China, arguing that both sides have strong incentives to find common ground and avoid a prolonged standoff. Others, like Mark Chen of Eurasia Group, take a more pessimistic view. They warn of a fundamental realignment in the world economy, an end to the era of hyperglobalization and the rise of competing economic blocs, with countries forced to pick sides and reconfigure their supply chains. Industry leaders are expressing mounting frustration as they're forced to unwind years of investment in China almost overnight. Many are bracing for painful workforce cuts, plant closures, and a scramble to find new suppliers. The damage to America's reputation as a reliable supplier is significant, and experts say it could take years, if not longer, to fully repair the trust lost with international partners. Labor leaders are stepping up their calls for smarter trade policy, demanding massive investment in worker training, and pushing for immediate relief for those displaced by the crisis. They argue that workers must not be left behind in the rush to adapt. The emerging consensus among analysts is clear: tariffs alone are reckless and insufficient without a broader, long-term industrial strategy to support American competitiveness. The crisis is deeply complex, with no easy or quick solutions in sight. Every decision carries risks and trade-offs. In response, businesses are moving quickly to diversify their operations, invest in automation, and prepare for a new era, defined by uncertainty and heightened risk. The stakes are incredibly high for both the US and Chinese economies, with ripple effects that could impact markets and jobs worldwide. The world is watching closely, searching for any signs of compromise or indications that the conflict could escalate even further. The outcome of this standoff will shape the rules and direction of global trade for years, if not decades to come. The Boeing crisis stands as a stark warning shot for all of American industry, highlighting the urgent need for resilience and forward-thinking strategy in an unpredictable world. Boeing's production halt is a watershed for American industry, exposing the risks of global interdependence. The crisis has spread from aerospace to agriculture, tech, and manufacturing, with workers bearing the brunt. The trade-off between efficiency and resilience is now unavoidable. Reshoring, automation, and friendshoring each bring new challenges. Expert opinions diverge. Some see hope for de-escalation, others predict a long era of competition. The old rules of global trade no longer apply. National security and industrial policy are now intertwined. The silence on Boeing's assembly line is a stark reminder of what's at stake. The choices made now will define America's economic future in a more contentious world.